Imagine a Boeing wide-body on final approach, a busy interstate highway just before the runway, and a 4-5-meter light pole. What could possibly go wrong? On May 3, 2026, United Flight 169 descended over the New Jersey Turnpike on its approach to Newark. The aircraft was just 0.5 meters above the ground, low enough to clip that light pole with its belly. Miraculously, no one on board the jet was hurt, and only one driver in a bread truck sustained minor injuries. The jet landed, taxied to the gate, and parked. The crew remained unaware of the extent of the damage until they walked back and inspected the tail. The National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, has just released its preliminary report on this incident, where a United 767 came in dangerously low over the New Jersey Turnpike while landing on runway 29 at Newark. Let's delve into the details. United Flight 169 was a Boeing 777-400ER, an extended-range, wide-bodied twin jet, registered as November 7766. It was inbound to Newark from Venice, Italy, carrying 220 passengers and 11 crew members, 3 flight crew in the cockpit and 8 flight attendants in the cabin. Everyone disembarked safely. A quick note on the 3 pilots. On long transatlantic flights like Venice to Newark, airlines often carry an extra pilot or relief pilot. This allows the working pilots to take rest breaks in flight while staying within their legal duty limits. The relief pilot typically covers a seat during the cruise phase and does not fly the takeoff or landing. For this particular approach, the captain was flying, the first officer was monitoring, and the relief officer was present on the flight deck as a crew member, though not at the controls. The flight proceeded normally until the descent into Newark. As often happens on a busy, windy afternoon, Newark air traffic control kept changing the plan. The crew was initially set up for one runway, then switched to another, and subsequently asked to be ready to hold while the airport shuffled its traffic. They slowed down in anticipation, and then the assignment changed one more time to runway 29. This is Newark's shortest runway, approximately 2,040 meters long, and it lacks an instrument landing system, ILS, the precise radio beam that guides airliners down to most major runways. Instead, runway 29 uses an RAV approach or area navigation, which is GPS-based. The GPS provides the crew with vertical and horizontal guidance down to a published point in space known as the minimums. After this point, pilots fly the remainder of the approach the runway visually. The path to runway 29 crosses the New Jersey Turnpike just before the pavement begins. The captain briefed each of these runway changes. He informed investigators that his plan for the visual segment was to fly it at 3 red, 1 white on the PAPI, calling it his desert sight picture for runway 29. PAPI stands for Precision Approach Path Indicator. It's a row of 4 light boxes beside the runway that indicates whether a pilot is on the correct descent angle or glide slope. Each box shows red or white depending on the aircraft's angle. 2 red. 2 white means you are precisely on the standard 3-degree glide path, the safe path that clears all obstacles between the aircraft and the runway. More white indicates being too high, while more red means being too low. 4 red lights signal that the aircraft is significantly below the desired path. Pilots learn a training rhyme. White on white, you're high as a kite. Red on white, you're all right. Red on red, you're dead. So 2 red, 2 white signifies being on path. The captain's plan of 3 red, 1 white means flying 1 notch low. Airline policy, according to industry sources, typically requires pilots to stay at or above the glide slope until around 60 meters above the runway. What did this flight do? The NTSB preliminary report provides some answers. The standard PAPI installation is to the left of the runway, but for runway 29, the PAPI is on the right. As the flight descended the approach corridor, the captain disconnected the autopilot and autothrottles at approximately 270 meters. This point marked the end of the GPS-guided portion of the approach, transitioning to visual flight. From there, he was hand-flying the aircraft into a gusty headwind. Winds that afternoon were from the west at about 35 kilometers per hour, gusting up to 55 kilometers per hour. Skies were clear with 16 kilometers of visibility, the runway was dry, and it was daytime. This was not a weather-related accident, but the wind created a high workload approach. The captain, hand-flying within tolerances, told investigators he initially became fast when turning into the headwind. He reduced power, and the airspeed restabilized, with the gusts producing moderate turbulence. Then, on short final within 800 meters of the runway, the first officer called out that the airspeed was slow. The captain reported no wind shear alerts. At 150 meters, the automated call-out sounded, and the captain responded, stable. However, the airspeed continued to decay, and the distance below the glide slope increased. According to the report, the first officer called out again, "You are still slow and a little low." The captain was most likely focused on the outside visual cues, flying his sight picture. The first officer, according to his testimony, was looking down, monitoring the trends. When he looked back outside, he thought they were low. His words to investigators were, "I thought we were low." But by that point, they were right at touchdown, and a go-around call was never made. As the airplane crossed the New Jersey Turnpike, which sits about 1.5 meters higher than the runway, the recorded height above the ground dropped rapidly. 4 to 6 meters 9, 4 meters 5, 8 meters 5, 5 meters 3, 4 meters then 8 meters. The report indicates the captain had to work the throttles, and at that 8-meter height over a busy highway, the 4-5-meter Lightpole was struck. The airplane hit it with the lower aft fuselage, the belly near the tail, and with the number 1 left main landing gear tire. A second later, the airplane climbed slightly to 3-4 meters before touching down on the runway at 15:12 that afternoon. In the cockpit, the captain heard a thump just before touchdown, while the first officer felt a mild jolt near the threshold. In the back, flight attendants heard a loud bang just before landing. Despite the impact, the airplane continued to fly, landed, rolled out, and taxied to the gate. Everyone disembarked normally. It was only when the captain inspected his aircraft at the gate that he's discovered the substantial damage. 3 separate punctures in the lower left aft fuselage. The largest, in the middle, was about 117 centimeters long and had punched through all 3 layers of the fuselage structure. The number 1 main gear tire also had slash marks across it. It's important to clarify a detail that was widely reported, including in earlier coverage. The airplane's tire did not hit the truck on the turnpike. The NTSB found that what struck the southbound tractor trailer, the bread truck, was debris from the light pole dislodged by the airplane's impact, not the airplane itself. There were no tire marks on the truck. The pole absorbed the direct hit, and its debris then struck the truck, causing the driver's injuries. On a visual segment like this, the expectation in Federal Regulation 14 CFR 91 and 29 stipulate that an aircraft must maintain an altitude at or above the visual glide path indicator, like a PAPI, until a lower altitude is necessary for landing. In simple terms, the PAPI shows the safe path, and pilots should not descend below it prematurely. They should follow it down and only dip below in the final tens of meters, when about to land if required. That is the standard. Whether this approach met that standard is a judgment the NTSB and FAA will make. Following the accident, United Airlines reinforced glide slope adherence among its pilots. The airline issued a pilot bulletin on landing at short runways, in which United's internal safety system flagged a specific hazard: no ducking under the glide path. This refers to the habit of shifting the aim point and allowing the aircraft to sink below the electronic or visual glide path during the visual segment. United identified this as a contributing factor to low approaches at certain airports and runways. United also released an operations alert reminding its pilots that on runway 29, the visual glide path indicator provides safe obstacle clearance within 10 degrees of the runway centerline out to 4 kilometers. In essence, the PAPI was functioning correctly. Staying on it ensures obstacle clearance. The NTSB's preliminary report includes a graph detailing their descent profile. It shows the 3-degree glide slope. Dotted lines represent the PAPI indications, wider dotted lines for 3 red, 1 white, and a finer dotted line for 4 red lights. Looking at their descent at 150 meters, they were actually slightly above the glide slope. However, at 128 meters, they fell below it, indicating 3 red on the PAPI. Then between 67 and 73 meters, they transitioned to 4 red lights, meaning they were well below the safe path. From that point on, the distance below the glide slope continued to increase until they reached the new Jersey Turnpike. The standard procedure is to maintain 2 red, 2 white on the PAPI until approximately 60 meters or below, which is clearly not reflected in their descent profile. Many are likely wondering what happens to pilots after an incident like this. For this crew, the NTSB's operations group interviewed all 3 pilots, and United Airlines removed the operating crew from service, which is standard procedure. ALPA, the pilots' union, is a party to the investigation and will support the pilots throughout the process. Generally, When an incident is classified as an accident, federal rules require post-accident drug and alcohol testing of the crew, and the pilots are typically removed from active duty pending a review. The airline conducts an internal board of inquiry, potentially involving representatives from fleet training, maintenance, dispatch, and a union representative. The outcome often depends on two factors: the pilot's record and whether they accept responsibility for the mistake. A clean record and an honest account usually lead to remedial training, a check ride, and a monitoring period before returning to normal flying. Negligence or attempts to deflect blame can lead to discipline, up to and including job termination. Failing a drug test or refusing to take one results in automatic termination. However, that is the general path. What happens to this specific crew will be determined by the ongoing investigation and United Airlines. Here's what we know and what we don't. We know the airplane crossed the turnpike at 1 to 8 meters, struck a 4-5 meter pole, and landed with substantial damage. We know the captains planned to fly the final segment at 3 red, 1 white, 1 notch low. We know the airspeed decayed on short final, and a go-around was not initiated in time. What we don't yet know is why the airspeed decayed, and why the descent continued below the planned profile. We also don't know what the ground proximity warning system indicated. That computer was removed from the aircraft and has not yet been downloaded. Furthermore, we don't have the full cockpit voice recorder transcript, and a probable cause statement, which typically takes the NTSB 12 to 18 months, is still pending. As we learn more, we will keep you informed. It is a great relief that no one was seriously hurt. This incident could have been far worse. Remember, superior judgment trumps superior skill. Take care.